Hello and welcome to the UFC 231 morning weigh-in stream here on MMA Fighting. Thank you so much, all of you guys, for joining us today here on this stream. This is a very exciting one. My name is Sean El-Shadi. I am joined by our resident son of the North, Mr. Alexander K. Lee. And this is a home game for you, Alex. Thank you for welcoming us, first of all, here to your beautiful city in Toronto. I'm really enjoying it here.
You're very yes, Toronto's own. You're very welcome. I welcomed everyone personally to the city. I welcomed all the fighters. I welcomed everyone. And so I gave permission. They're all here. I gave them permission to be here.
Well, you're very gracious. And this is, like I said at the top, I mean, this is an interesting card, man. I mean, this is one of the top cards of the year, in my opinion. This is one I've been most excited about, just when we look at the upcoming slate. And Max Holloway, the headliner of this card, the UFC featherweight champion, has been saying all week that this is really a fighter's fight card, an MMA insider's card. And he's right in a lot of ways, because it's not a lot of big names, it's not a lot of stars studded all over the event. But there are a ton of really interesting matchups in the top two here. I think, I would argue, are as good as any top two on most cards.
No, I agree, and I really think Max is on point. Especially, you said the top two spectacular. I mean, two main events that any legitimate, I hate to put it that way, but any legitimate MMA fan should be interested in. Holloway Ortega, maybe the greatest featherweight matchup you could make, maybe of all time, and then Shevchenko, Jędrzejczyk, two of the top pound-for-pound female fighters meeting at 125. So that's super exciting. And then you just look at the undercard, and there's tons of recognizable names, tons of competitive matchups. I give a lot of credit to the matchmakers for putting this one together. Super solid card.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that co-main event. I want to talk a lot about that co-main event, and we will later on in this stream. But let's start with that main event, because that is really where the intrigue is, at least for right now, with where we're currently at the weigh-ins. Because Max Holloway, I mean, I don't need to explain, it has been a difficult year for him.
When he stepped on the scale, correct?
Aaron Bronstead has cut it into our broadcast here. But yes, Max Holloway has technically never missed weight, but he also did have that issue.
Did not make it to the scale.
Yes. And as I was saying, it's been a difficult year for Max, AK. At the beginning of the year, he was supposed to fight Frankie Edgar. He ends up having to pull out of that card with injuries. In the middle of the year, he was supposed to fight Khabib on short notice. That fight ends up falling through because of weight issues, basically. It was a short notice fight. And then the Brian Ortega fight at UFC 226 falls through for very scary issues. And so now here he is. It's finally the end of the year. He hasn't fought in 2018. How do you feel like Max has looked, in your opinion, this week?
I thought this week he's looked fine. I do see comments, people saying maybe something's off with his speech, maybe he looks a little, more drawn out. I think, but it's a bit of a confirmation bias. I think people might be concerned about his health and thus really nitpicking, any little faults in his appearance or in his vocabulary. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm going the opposite way and I'm too optimistic. But I think he's looked fine. And just you running that over, it's crazy to me. All that stuff happened this year. I was working on some Holloway material yesterday and had forgotten about the Edgar fight being canceled. So for that, and then Khabib and the previous Ortega booking to all fall through, I'm more worried about his mental state. I'm concerned about where he'll be coming back after all that. But all week has been saying all the right things, as he usually does, so maybe we shouldn't be too concerned.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke to Max yesterday. Actually, we spoke to him in the past 2 days, but yesterday in particular. And, I asked him about his weight and his cut, and he said he indicated that everything was fine and he was actually very close. Obviously, you're asking a fighter about his weight cut a day out, so who knows whether he's telling the truth or not. But he did seem to look good. He seemed to be healthy, he seemed to be active, and he seemed okay. So I would say most people would say that would be the intrigue going into the weigh-in stream today. But we will see, and we are starting the proceedings here, my friend.
We got a lineup. I see a lineup.
And if you're just joining us, welcome to the UFC 231 morning weigh-in stream. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Sean El-Shadi. I am joined by Alexander K. Lee.
Hello.
And things are going to start fast and furious here.
Devin Clark, it looks like, will be the first one up, light heavyweight.
All right, our first fighter to scale, Devin Clark.
Devin Clark, indeed. Light heavyweight who is opening the card here on Saturday night, first fight of the night.
Opponent's next.
Interesting tattoo there on the chest of
That is
Clark.
impressive.
205 for Devin Clark. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's a little dog in the center of that tattoo.
Is that what you would call that? It's like there's something elkish. Elkin? That's a word.
You can make it a word. I'll allow it.
Scale rather is Alexander Rakic.
Alexander Rakic,
Devin
the
Clark's
opponent of
yeah.
Devin Clark, up next. And there is already a healthy crowd developing behind us here in Toronto, including Justin Gaethje, noted UFC lightweight contender, the most exciting man in mixed martial arts.
Ooh. Comment section, go ahead.
I would
Give us
love
your
someone to argue
Give us
against
your
that.
suggestions. Give us your suggestions. I mostly agree. I'm just off the top of my head, sure. One of the names did definitely come up.
All right, Alexander Rakic up now, light heavyweight. .206 for Alexander Rakic.
Looking very comfortable. I believe, as of this morning, the biggest favorite on the card.
Is that right?
I think so. He's won his last 10. He hasn't lost since October 15th, 2011. So all the man does is kind of flying under the radar, but he's 2-0 in the UFC so far. So maybe the hype is legit. But I mean, Devin Clark's a pretty good fighter. So I don't encourage gambling, but I'm just saying if you guys want to check that line out, so you got a good feeling about Devin Clark, maybe splash some cash on that. But yeah, Rakic definitely looking to build something here.
Lightweight division, Kyle Nelson.
Next up, Kyle Nelson, lightweight fighter.
Very
He is
short
coming-
notice.
Yes, he's coming in very short notice. He's taking on Diego Ferreira. This is also on the UFC Fight Pass prelims. It seems as though we're going in order so
Yeah,
far.
can't
The
remember
first
last
fight
time
was
that
the
happened.
first
It's
fight.
almost ceremonial.
The first two fighters were from the first fight, and now this is the second fight. $155 and a half for Kyle Nelson.
Very good. Huntsville, Ontario zone. Huntsville's about 2.5, 3 hour drive out from here.
So the short notice fighter, he really got this assignment on a few days' notice. He
Yes.
comes in and he makes weight.
He's competed at both featherweight and lightweight, so not too difficult for him to make lightweight on short notice.
Division, Claudia Gadelha.
Next up, Claudia Gadelha, who's fighting Nina Ansaroff on the FS1 prelims, and there is a little rousing applause for Claudia Gadelha. First one of the day. $115 and a half for Claudia Gadelha.
On point, we spoke to her yesterday, and she's actually spent time in Canada before, but I think only in the summer. I think it's her first time experiencing anything close to the winter. She was not happy. She did not look happy.
She did not seem to enjoy the cold, and that's putting it mildly.
She had a very nice fur on, which I think was definitely more for life, like for living, quality of living than style. It looked nice, but I think she just
Next up
needed
to the
it.
scale, also in the women's strawweight division, Nina Ansaroff.
And so next up, Nina Ansaroff, who is actually fighting Claudia Gadelha in that strawweight fight. She is accompanied by the UFC Women's Bantamweight champion, Amanda Nunes, who in just 2 weeks is fighting Chris Cyborg. $115 and a quarter for Nina Ansaroff. So that strawweight fight is official.
Ansaroff looking for her 4th straight strawweight win. That'll tie her with Tatiana Suarez for the current longest active strawweight streak.
Really coming out
Next
of
fighter to
nowhere,
the
too.
scale in the welterweight
turned things
division,
around.
Chad Laprise.
Chad Laprie up next. Canada's own.
That's right.
He is taking on Diego Lima on the undercard in a welterweight bout. And I do see Brian Ortega in the back there as well, so one half of our main event.
171.
171 for Chad Lepre.
Chandler Pre, he's been looking good at welterweight. That's the weight he won the Ultimate Fighter Nations season, which I'm sure we all watched. I would say the 12th best.
Scale in the women's flyweight division, Caitlin Chukagian.
All right, next up, Caitlin Chukagian, who yesterday told us that she was the official backup fighter that the UFC asked to make weight. And she's obviously fighting Jessica Eye, but she is also making weight in case anything goes awry with that co-main event between Valentina Shevchenko and Yana Jędrzejczyk. So I would expect this to be championship weight, Alex.
Yep, she has to be on it. I mean, for it to be eligible, yep, she has to be on. So she looks prepared. She looks like she's in great shape. I am expecting 125. I think it's going to be out right in the dot.
$125 and 3/4.
125 and 3/4 for Caitlin Chukagian.
That's interesting.
That is not championship weight,
is
so
not
it will be.
I guess so. Our man Casey suggesting we could, with a few adjustments, she could make it.
But that's not how that works. So if it comes to it, I don't know that she will be able to take that fight. Now Brian Ortega up next, one half of our main event.
Another big ovation.
And the crowd continues to grow here behind us here at the UFC 31 morning weigh-in stream. Brian Ortega challenging for the featherweight title here on Saturday.
$144 and 3/4.
144 and 3/4 for Brian Ortega. That half of our main event is official.
A lot of people picking Ortega to unseat Holloway, another guy in a crazy streak, 12 straight, and I don't blame him. We'll give our picks later, but I will say I understand why there's so much confidence behind Ortega. He's just been unbelievable in the UFC, not just unbeaten, finishing people left and right, finishing late, early.
In the men's featherweight division,
Yes, we'll talk more about that main event because it is absolutely sensational.
Now, Kyle Bochniak, featherweight.
Kyle Bochniak up now, featherweight, who's taking on Hakeem Dawodu with a big opportunity here on this main card.
$145.
145 for Kyle Bochniak, who's looking to rebound after a very tough but exciting fight against a beat Magomed Sharipov.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. He's looking to rebound, but also kind of build on it because it was a really exciting fight. It kind of put his name on the map, but he's been off for so long now. I think people maybe only remember the results. So, yeah, it's going to be it's a really important fight for him.
I do think he surprised a lot of people in that fight.
Definitely.
Valentina Shevchenko.
Next up, Valentina Shevchenko, who this must feel like Groundhog's Day for her. She has weighed in for a championship fight multiple times in her career, and several of those fights have fallen through. Hopefully this will not be one of them. It seems as though this is a different vibe this week.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like there's been a lot of concerns. She's sounded very confident that it's been asked, are you happy to have someone that you know has made weight every time, professional, a champion like Joanna, and she's been very positive about it. So,
Valentina Shevchenko in tremendous shape this week.
$123.5.
123.5 for Valentina Shevchenko. She comes in screw championship weight. She is 1.5 under.
Maybe she's going for that strawweight title next. Maybe she must be the first woman to compete for 3 UFC titles. That's well under.
123.5 for a woman who challenged for the bantamweight title.
That's right.
I love it.
Oh, she is prepared.
I cannot wait for that fight.
I think we have Diego Ferreira coming up next. Don't quote me on that. I just see him.
Okay, thank you.
No spoilers?
Next up,
I'm spoiling the draft.
division, Matthew Lopez.
Oh, I lied.
Matthew Lopez up next.
I missed him.
And that's why you don't guess ahead of time, Alex. Rookie mistake.
$135.5.
135.5 for Matthew Lopez, who is taking on Brad Katona here on the UFC Fight Pass prelims.
Matthew Lopez, super talented guy. His run of the UFC has been a little uneven. He's lost his last couple. He's 2-3 overall. So, but I think he's always putting on good fights. So I know he has a budding fan base, and I hope people keep an eye on him. Don't sleep on that fight with him and Brad Katona.
And Justin Gaethje here behind us, celebrating for his teammate making weight.
Our next fighter to the scale in the lightweight division, Diego Ferreira.
Diego Ferreira up next. You were just one early, Alex.
I was one early, so he is matched up with this is. Well, I'll mention after that he's fighting his third scheduled opponent. I want to say. Let me pinpoint that after he weighs in.
$155.75.
155.75 for Diego Ferreira, who's taking on Kyle Nelson here on the UFC Fight Pass prelims. And Diego Ferreira on a sneaky nice streak. I mean, Jared Gordon and Olivier Aubin-Mercier, 2 wins back-to-back. Those are not easy names to defeat. So a sneaky fight here on the undercard.
Yeah, and there's really nothing easy about his preparation this week. Again, so he was originally scheduled to fight John McDessie. That fell through. Jesse Ronson, that fell through. And now Kyle Nelson. So hopefully he's kind of just going in no game plan.
Yeah, he has gone through the ringer here on Fight Week. Next up, Thiago Santos, who started at welterweight, moved up to middleweight, and now is fighting at light heavyweight. And he could make some noise here in this division. He is taking on Jimmy Manuwa.
How did he ever make welterweight? How does?
He's a big man.
He's an impressive fellow.
$205.75.
205.75 for Thiago Santos.
Yeah, no problem making light heavyweight for him. Like a lot of fighters who've been asked to move up, he does not committing to staying at 205. It sounds like he still wants to give 185 a chance. If he feels like he can make it, that's great. But 205, he looks fantastic. He looked very good in his first fight against Eric Anders. Manuwa, huge test, top 10 guy. See how that goes.
He's certainly getting a big opportunity here. Next up is Brad Katona, who's taking on Matthew Lopez in a bantamweight bout on the UFC Fight Pass prelims. Canada's own Brad Katona.
Representing Winnipeg, Manitoba. It's kind of Manitoba. Or maybe I'm doing a Minnesota accent and mixing them together. They're kind of similar.
It sounds right to me.
People from
So
Winnipeg
I'll
are
allow
going
it.
to kill me right now. I love Winnipeg, bro.
$135.5.
135.5
for Brad Katona.
Another Ultimate Fighter winner, Ultimate Fighter 27, which I would rank as maybe like the 16. You know, someday I'll do my Ultimate Fighter rankings of every season that I've watched, because I'm probably the only one who's done that.
You do love the Ultimate Fighter in a way that few people do at this point. And a big old smile on Brad Katona's face as he makes weight.
He's a super chipper guy, though. He's a super chipper guy.
Chipper is a good word.
Yeah,
People don't say chipper enough.
To describe him specifically.
Diego Lima up next, welterweight fighter, who's taking on Chad Lepre here on this UFC Fight Pass prelims. And he is the last UFC Fight Pass prelims we have, or fighter, I should say, that we have to weigh in. This is going fast and furious here.
Mm-hmm. And now you've jinxed it, and now we'll slow down for the next 45 minutes.
That's the way it goes.
Not that I believe in jinxes.
170 and a quarter.
170 and a quarter for Diego Lima.
Lima, the brother of Douglas Lima, of course, Bellator welterweight standout, and he owns the dubious distinction of being the only two-time Ultimate Fighter finalist, two-time finalist, most recently in the Redemption series. So, talented guy, but definitely has not been getting the results he's wanted since coming up to the UFC level.
Our next fighter to the scale in the light heavyweight division, Jimmy Manuwa.
Next up on the scale, Jimmy Manuwa, UFC light heavyweight contender who's taking on Thiago Santos on this pay-per-view card.
$204 and 3/4.
204 and 3/4 for Jimmy Manuwa, who's really coming into here in a very important fight, I would say, for his career. He's 38 years old on a 2-fight losing streak. He's taking on unranked Thiago Santos. Obviously, Thiago Santos is not a normal unranked fighter, but it's a very important fight for him if he still wants to remain in title contention here in this division.
Sean was really grilling Jimmy the other day. I kind of asked him maybe, I don't know what the word you're wording with, over the hill or something to that effect.
That absolutely didn't happen. Next up
Hopefully he
on the
proves
scale.
Sean wrong on Saturday.
Next up on the scale is Elias Theodorou, who's taking on Eric Anders in a middleweight fight to open up the FS1 prelims.
$184.5.
184.5 for Elias Theodorou. He makes it. And this could be the fight to really catapult him into the actual discussion here at middleweight. He's on a nice streak himself. And next up on the scale, the UFC featherweight champion, Max Holloway. I feel like this is the moment of truth for a lot of people.
I'm holding my breath. If I'm not talking, it's because I'm holding my breath.
Max looks ready to go.
Yeah, it doesn't look too concerned.
Next up to the scale in the featherweight division, the champ, Max Holloway.
Ooh, he gets a rousing introduction. He is already shirtless. He is ready to do this.
$144.5.
144.5 for
problem.
Max Holloway. The UFC featherweight champion makes it with half a pound to go, and he shushes the critics. He's got this under control. We have a main event, Alex.
Man, that was a fiery step to the scale. If you can, I don't know if you can have a fiery step to the scale, but that was one if I've seen one. The look in his eyes.
Take a slight break.
And we are taking a slight break here, so let's unwind. There was a lot of tension here with that weigh-in. I could feel it.
That was a good time for a break. that was intense.
That was, and to your point that you were just saying, that really did feel as though Max was shushing a lot of the critics there. It felt like there was a little extra in that weigh-in. He has been through a difficult year, as we said at the top. And so much for the break, Joanna and Jacek.
Next up to the scale
We were misled.
in the women's flyweight division, Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
She, the longtime strawweight queen, making her move up here to flyweight. And I think there's a chance she might weigh more than Valentina Shevchenko.
Oh yeah, considering how Valentina came in.
Joanna and Jacek telling the official that she's on weight. He doesn't need to worry. Making her empty her pockets.
I don't think he likes being told.
She must take the sweats off.
123 and 3/4.
123 and 3/4 for Joanna
man.
Jędrzejczyk.
Easy, man. She even did the announcement pose, which they always tell you not to do, but that's how confident she was. Like, it didn't matter.
So she is a quarter of a pound heavier than Valentina Shevchenko, and both of our title fights here are official very quickly here early on the UFC morning weigh-ins. That was an interesting one. Joanna Jędrzejczyk wanted to weigh in with sweats, maybe add a half a pound to her weight there. Commission official making her check her pocket, see if there's extra weights inside there, Dan Henderson style.
She did a lot of stuff. There was supposed to be a break. She came in and said, no. There's no break. I'm weighing in now. I decide when there's a break. She came to the scale and immediately said, I've made weight. She told him, I made weight. And guess what? She was right. So.
And so now here we go. These two title fights are official. I think there's a big sigh of relief for a lot of people in this room. And it does appear that we will have a break now, so let's backtrack and let's talk about this main event. Max Holloway, after the year he has had, I mean, this is effectively his 4th training camp that he has had to spend money on and prepare for. Hopefully he'll be able to fight. I mean, if not, he would be 0-4 for the year. Just one moment. Apologies, we're experiencing technical difficulties here. It is a very crowded room, and things get unplugged in a crowded room. But as I was saying, man, I feel like this main event is something that we don't get very often. It is anticipated for all the right reasons. It is two guys really hitting their fighting primes at a similar stage in their career. And I don't know that anybody would argue that these are the two best featherweights in the world. I feel like this main event brings a little extra that we maybe don't get.
Yeah,
Usually.
we give the UFC, we in the media and fans of all, we give the UFC a lot of guff for some of their matchmaking decisions sometimes. So I think it's only fair that we praise them when, I know it's the logical thing, but still, making these matchups happen can be really difficult sometimes, as we've seen with how many times poor Holloway has been, booked this here and there and falling through. And so to make this fight happen again after it fell through once, no issue with Ortega, no issue with Holloway. It's something to be celebrated, and like you said, I wouldn't even just say featherweight. I'm not sure outside of maybe Khabib Ferguson. This has to be like maybe the most best, most competitive main event matchup you could make.
It's definitely quite good, and I think there was a big sigh of relief there when Max Holloway makes weight because he has gone through a difficult year. But let's talk about this co-main event too, because really, that is the first time that I can remember seeing a non-depleted, non-sucked out Joanna Jędrzejczyk on the scale. She has looked like a different person this week, all throughout the week. I mean, she has had lots of energy. She has been very upbeat, and you can tell that the not having to cut weight has really been a big improvement, just in her, not only in her life, but just in terms of maybe her performance here on Saturday.
Yeah, and you have to wonder, maybe that's enough, because mentality is such a huge part. And she said just how much better she feels and how it's changed her routine and allowed her to train more and not worry about weight, which again is something a lot of fighters say when they move up. They love not having to worry about spending so much of their camp, worrying about the cut. And there has to be some improvement because it's been talked about to death. They fought in kickboxing 3 times. Valentina's won every time. Kickboxing, huge differences between Muay Thai kickboxing and MMA.
Also, that was a decade ago.
That was a decade ago. They're completely different fighters. It's a different sport. They've had different success in it. But I understand people thinking those were, kickboxing. This is going to be a stand-up battle. How different could it be? So I think that's fairly legit. That's a very legit take to have. I understand why Valentina's favored, based not just, again, on their past, but what she's done in the UFC so far, how she looked in her lone 125 fight against Priscilla Cachoeira. So, I'm not saying where I'm leaning just yet, but I understand why Shevchenko is maybe the slight favorite going in.
In my opinion, and you tell me what you think about this, but in my opinion, I feel like, I know there's a lot of hyperbole that we spit in the media about this being the greatest ever and that being the greatest ever, but this really does feel to me like one of the most talented women's matchups that I can remember in ever, honestly. Just what these two women have accomplished and really how they've gotten here. This might be one of the most skillful women's fights in history.
Sure, people could look at maybe, Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate. That was a great rivalry. And then years later we had, it didn't turn out to be a great fight, but on paper, Holly Holm, Chris Cyborg, as far as their striking credentials, things that they'd accomplished again in MMA and their respective, other disciplines. That was a high level. I do think this tops all those, at least the UFC. If someone wants to point to a fight in another promotion, but as far as best UFC women's fight, most high level, this has to be it. This has to be it. And to think it almost got derailed by some, the Sijara Eubanks booking, the Nico Montano fiasco. We almost didn't get this matchup, and I'm glad that at the end of the day the dust settled and they realized, oh, this is the best matchup. This is what people want. Let's just make this happen, and here we are.
Yeah, and there really is a lot on the line here for both women because I feel like on Joanna and Jacek's side, she's talked about it in terms of all-time legacy fight, where this is one where she would be moved up in the GOAT conversation when it comes to women's MMA, being the first 2-division UFC women's champion, beating somebody that I think a lot of people really feel as though she is not going to be able to beat. I think she is a healthy underdog here in this Valentina Shevchenko fight. And on the other side of that, Valentina Shevchenko, the narrative around her for really the entirety of her UFC run has been, if this division ever comes, she might be that woman who becomes the Demetrius Johnson of it, who really is the dominant force in it.
I just want to say this. I hope whoever wins, whether Shevchenko or Joanna, that well, specifically Joanna, I think we know Valentina plans to stick around. I hope Joanna also plans to stick around and defend. She said she said kind of both things, that pardon me, her goal is to both return to strawweight and conquer that again, but also that she won't take too much time off and also defend the flyweight title. So I don't know if she's keeping her options open or if she realistically thinks she can juggle both. So that's kind of an interesting take on things, but I just hope that they bring some stability to this 125-pound division. It was introduced in a very awkward way through the Ultimate Fighter, with Nico Montano winning a title in a tournament that, frankly, not a lot of people watched, I don't think. So the credibility was hurt from the beginning, but if you put that title on a Valentina Shevchenko or Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and some of the people coming up, Chookagian and I fighting this card, you build up real contenders fights, it could be a really strong division. I hope people give it a chance.
Yeah, it really feels as though this division's finally coming to fruition in the way that I think a lot of people hoped it would maybe a year ago, because this division has been around now for more than a year, and it has been a slow starter, to say the least. I think most people would attribute that to sort of the long wait between title defenses for Nico Montano and ultimately her just not even being able to defend that title. But now, there's been a lot of criticism thrown from fellow flyweights at Joanna Jędrzejczyk for getting this fight. But it has been interesting to see some of the flyweights kind of understand where the UFC is coming from in this regard, because Joanna is obviously put in the time. She is one of the greatest women's fighters we've seen in this sport. So it is not as though she is some random coming off the street fighting in her first flyweight fight to get that title shot. It feels as though she has earned it in some way, and I think Caitlin Chookagian, who we talked to yesterday, who was the official backup fighter, saw it in that regard, whereas Caitlin's opponent, Jessica Ai, echoed the sentiments of other flyweights where maybe Joanna didn't deserve this.
Yeah, Jessica, always great to hear from her. Very vocal fighter. Never want to hold her opinion when she's not happy about something, and that's great. We always encourage that. She also, like you said, she echoed the sentiments of Liz Carmouche, who had spoken earlier. She spoke to Dave Doyle about that, about Joanna not deserving the shot. So I understand where they're coming from. I think Joanna, she kind of her response to it all was kind of like, look, I got, like you said, I got my opportunity for a reason. I know why I'm here. Don't worry about me. You worry about your stuff. So she's kind of unfairly, I think, dismissing the politics of the matchmaking, but it should, like, we do hope it'll correct itself at some point once one of these ladies wins the title, and then they actually establish a contenders line. So I say the other contenders completely justified in feeling snubbed, but hey, that's the business, right? That's how our title shots handed out. Sorry, it's not always based on who's actually been competing in the division.
Very true. And if you were just joining us here on this morning weigh-in stream, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, this has been the UFC 231 morning weigh-in stream. My name is Sean Shadi. I am joined by our resident son of the North, Mr. Alexander K. Lee. And things are moving along quickly here. We have 7 fighters left to go. And the 4 big ones have all made weight. Max Holloway and Brian Ortega both coming in under that 145-pound featherweight limit. Max Holloway doing it with force. He was shushing the critics, doing the LeBron shut it down type of movement. And then in the co-main event, like we just said, Valentina Shevchenko and Joanna Jędrzejczyk both coming in at 132 pounds, with a little bit of or a quarter pound difference between them. So a healthy underweight in that sense.
It's again, I was joking. Oh, we got the other people coming up, but it was making me think, man, could Shevchenko make it down to 1? I doubt it. She can make it to 115, but now I'm like, she came in so far under. What if? No, I don't wish. I'm not suggesting that. Please, no more extreme. Please, no more extreme weight cutting.
But it is funny. I mean, we were talking about a woman who fought for the bantamweight title, and she so easily comes in so underweight for the flyweight title. And the towel has come out, so we may see someone using this towel soon.
Stand by.
It appears as though this is
Next
Cowboy
up to the scale
Oliveira.
in the welterweight division, Alex Cowboy Oliveira.
Indeed, Alex Cowboy Oliveira coming out, and we will see the towel here, it looks so. Cowboy is in a big one. He is taking on Gunnar Nelson. And Cowboy Oliveira, really one of the sneaky good contenders here in this welterweight division. He's doing this without the towel first.
171.
171.
We will not need a towel. He is thrilled about it.
Yeah, he went from looking a little serious and then back to regular Cowboy Oliveira mode, smiling and just looking loose. He did look a little worried, and I think he wanted to use the towel at first, and they just said, no, let's try it without it, and it worked out. But oh, look at him.
He's enjoying himself. And I asked him about this yesterday when we talked to him. It really feels as though he is one of the happiest fighters. He is just always so happy to be in there and competing and just enjoying this. To a degree that I don't see often from fighters. Would you agree with that?
I mean, so many fighters talk about, Donald Cerrone is one of them among many, how afraid they are before they go in. And maybe he feels the same fear and just doesn't talk about it, but you certainly wouldn't tell when he goes in there. From his walk-up to the way he approaches his opponent, just to the fight itself. We all remember the Yancy Medeiros fight where, they both hurt each other, and he just seemed to love it. He loved it. It was one of the most violent fights I'd ever seen in my life, and the guy just laughing the whole time. So, definitely a happy guy. I wouldn't say chipper. I'm saving chipper for Katona. He's not quite chipper. This guy's more like enthusiastic.
Also, I will say he was the best dressed man during UFC 231 weigh-in day, or media day. He was looking like he was coming straight out of Red Dead Redemption 2. It was a tremendous get-up that he had on.
We always support living the gimmick. He definitely lives the cowboy gimmick. He's rocking a nice pair of shades too, though he took them off at some point. So like when there's a good question, I know Sean asked him a good question, and he kind of took off the shades and hit us with that look, an intense look. And we're like, all right, this guy knows. He's been in the UFC for quite some time now. He knows how to play the game. And like you said, he's kind of he always seems to fly under the radar for some reason. I think he has a reputation of being, he'll just fight anyone. But he actually is on a nice streak and hasn't lost in a while.
I want to talk about that because I feel like he's one of those guys where people look at him as, he's a fun fighter. He's one of those guys just going to take any match, but he's going to be a really fun spot on the card. But he is on a really nice run. He has only lost one of his last 7. He's beaten a couple of really nice names over the course of that stretch. Tim Means, Carlos Condit, and Gunnar Nelson. I mean, Gunnar Nelson maybe we haven't seen him for a while, but he is still a name that I think a lot of people know and a lot of people respect. Maybe partly because of his connection to Conor McGregor. That certainly doesn't hurt when it comes to the casual fan base. But just also, people respect Gunnar Nelson's skill set. He is a tremendous fighter. I wonder if this is the fight that can really vault Cowboy into that conversation where people are actually talking about him as one of the best welterweights in the world, a possible title contender.
That's right, Sean. You said 6 of his last. Sorry, I said streaking. That's right. 6 of his last 7. Still an impressive run. Again, a lot of finishes in there. Now, I mean, will Gunnar be the one that puts him over the top? I think that's on Cowboy. You know, he is much like his American counterpart, Cowboy Cerrone, not really one to campaign for a title shot. He gets asked about it frequently. And I think he's finally at the point where he's saying, you know, yeah, if I get another big win. But he's not committing either way, and you get the sense that he's a good soldier, you know, and he might say he wants a title shot, but if an offer, you know, a good offer comes along to fight in Brazil or even like a Las Vegas, regardless of whether it's for a title or not, he'll just go for it. So he's not a squeaky wheel, let's put it that way. We talk about he seems like a pretty pleasant, pretty easy to please guy. So I think we'd all like to see him get a shot at a title at some point, especially if he beats Gunnar. Exciting fighter, well-rounded, but I do think it's on him and his management to really make that push if that's what they want. Let's see who's left to weigh in here. This is unofficial. We're looking, I believe, at Eric Anders, who's kind of had a weird moment because he came down. You know, he went up to 205. Hopefully his body's all right. He went up to 205 for that fight with Thiago Santos, so hopefully no issues going back to 185. We're waiting for Jessica I believe.
You got Gilbert Burns, we got Olivier Albin Mercier, we have Gunnar Nelson left, and I think for the most part that should be it.
Hakeem Dawodu.
Hakeem Dawodu,
Yes.
There you go. Thank you.
That's
if you
it.
were just joining us here on this morning weigh-in stream, as we have said, top 2 fights, top 4 fighters, all made weight. Drama-free morning so far here, which is a very nice change of pace. There's been a lot of drama on these weigh-in days lately.
Sean, would you say it's been a little bit of a drama-free week?
Now, those are the type of words that the MMA gods do not want to hear.
Would
not
you say,
invite that
would
evil
you
upon
say,
us.
Would you say that nothing could possibly go wrong? Would you say?
You are playing with
Sorry, that
fire,
was-
my friend.
Would you? I'm sorry.
I would
sorry,
say that nothing would possibly go wrong.
That's the first thing that's ever gone wrong. I apologize for that. That was sorry about that. No, I said it earlier. I don't believe in jinxes. So if something happens, whatever, Twitter, social, whatever, whoever's out there is listening to this, don't blame me, okay?
Absolutely blame
Don't
Alex.
blame
If you are
me.
out there listening,
It doesn't
it's
matter
100% Alex's fault. And I want to move on from that because that feels as though that issue is resolved. It is Alex's fault. Alex, I want to ask you, we've talked a lot about the main event and the co-main event now. What are a couple other fights you're kind of looking at on this card? Because this card is flying under the radar in a sense, like I said at the top, where Max Holloway is calling it a fight fans card. And I agree in a certain sense. It is not a lot of big names, but it's a lot of interesting matches. What's a couple things that you're looking at that maybe could be consequential here on Saturday?
Well, I want to stand up for the featherweights, Dawodu and Bosniak, because there were some people wondering why did this fight get put up to the main card after Mirsad Bektic and Renato Moicano fell through. And by the way, before I say, look, Moicano I assume is going to weigh in as well.
That is a good point.
Right? He's been designated as the possible. I guess he's not. Maybe he won't weigh in because.
I would assume he will still weigh in,
Just in
because that
case.
is part of the
Sure.
deal when they sign these official backup fighters. You make weight, and then we'll pay you for that.
So yeah, he was supposed to fight in the main card against Mirsad Bektic. That was going to be a great fight. Unfortunately, Bektic, I believe, withdrew. I can't recall if it was for an injury, but he did have to withdraw, and he got replaced by this other featherweight matchup, Hakeem Dawodu and Kyle Bosniak. And it's a great matchup style-wise. Both guys love to stand and bang. Bosniak says he's a grappler, but I don't know if I've ever seen him use it too much. He keeps getting in brawls, so maybe a little of a George Gergel situation. Not quite that extreme, but so that's a
callback.
Yeah, and I know George was very frustrating for a lot of fans. And also, I think the opening light heavyweight fight, if it goes beyond half a round, I mean, definitely Manoa and Santos could end it in a flash. But I think if it does go 3 rounds, it's another fight in that candidate for sure. Both guys, great strikers, super excited.
Yeah, and you mentioned Hakeem Dawodu. Keep an eye out for it this week. Our own Chuck Mindenhall has a tremendous feature coming out on him. I think that should probably come out either today or tomorrow. And he has gone through the ringer. He is one hell of a story. It is really incredible that he's been able to make it here to the UFC at the top of his profession. And he is really a prospect to watch. I mean, I remember watching his World Series of Fighting debut way back when, a couple years ago at this point, and he was just sparking people left and right. He is a really exciting prospect here in this featherweight division.
By the way, Chuck Mindenhall with a tremendous feature could just be like a hashtag at this point, because I feel like people say it so often. Yeah, definitely keep your eye out for that. That's a good one coming out. I don't want to spoil too much about it. I'll just say, yeah, he's got an incredible story. And it's funny, you know, his UFC debut, he got caught, he got hurt, and then I think submitted very fast, I think under 40 seconds. So up until that point, he was undefeated, had a ton of hype, especially coming out of Canada. You know, we're always looking for that next kind of Canadian guy to come out. So he was emerging from the scene out of Calgary. And it was a little disappointing how his debut went, but he got caught. It happens to everyone. He bounced back with a good performance. I wouldn't say an overwhelming performance in his hometown in Calgary against Austin Arnett. But he showed a little more of the potential. You know, he won a one-sided decision. He showed a little bit more of the potential that had people so excited. And Bochniak is definitely the kind of guy who's going to engage him.
He's a dog. He'll come at you.
He's going to come at you. So this is going to be very good test for Duato. Good matchmaking again.
And with the title fighters having made weight with no issue, it appears as though the crowd behind us has effectively cleared out. It went from a very busy room to a almost empty room. It's very interesting here. Toronto fight fans not waiting around, you would say, for the undercard fighters.
These people are probably just hoping that someone would miss weight and then they could gossip about it for the rest of the weekend. Shame on all of them. I love my.
Look at you shaming your fellow countrymen.
Toronto. I love my fellow Canadians, but we do like a little bit of gossip. We do. You know, we're like any town. We like a little gossip, a little bit of train wreck. You know? We do some rubbernecking every now and then. I can admit that.
Alex, in the spirit of our old pal Ariel Helwani,
Oh no.
Let me ask you. You live here in Toronto.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
You are a resident Canadian. Hit me with some Toronto fun facts.
All right,
What
hold
should
on.
I know about this city if I have never
Hold on.
been here, which I have never been?
Now hold on. Anyone who visits MMAfighting.com frequently knows that I do a lot of moderation on the site. That requires me to be at home a lot. I describe myself as the house mouse of MMA fighting.
You have described yourself as a house
Yes.
mouse several times this week.
I'm a bit embarrassed to admit I don't explore this. I live in the city. I don't explore it as much as I should. It's a beautiful city, lots of great places to eat. But as far as factoids, as far as being a good local tour guide, a little online tour guide for people, I have nothing for you. I have nothing. I cannot do again, like our compatriot Ariel, I cannot do the factoids.
Fair. That's fair.
I just shut that down.
I will say you absolutely shut that down. But I will say yesterday it started snowing, and this desert boy is not used to the cold at all. I forgot what it's like to be cold, and it started snowing, and I became a child. I became an absolute child, and I love the snow so much. It is silly.
I should have recorded you. I wish people could have seen the look in this man's eyes.
The glimmer in my eye.
It was wonderful. It was and you know, it made me feel bad sometimes for complaining about the snow, complaining about the weather, because I'm like, it is a very cool thing to experience, I imagine, for someone coming from Arizona.
Well, I don't really have to deal with the problems regarding it. I
This is
kind of
true.
just get to play around in it. So maybe that's a little different.
Yeah, but otherwise the weather has been okay. This is not. I mean, it's been a balmy. I want to say, for my American listeners, 30 degrees, 35 degrees Fahrenheit, something around there.
Yeah. And now we talked about it earlier about the co-main event. There being an official backup fighter for that co-main event. That is, of course, Caitlin Chukagian, who told us about this yesterday, that she was the UFC's choice. Jessica I kind of just shrugged her shoulders at that. What can you do, right? It was surprising today for me, though, that Caitlin Chukagian came in. She made weight, but she did not make championship weight. So if her number is called, she will not be able to compete for that title if some disaster strikes within the next 24 hours. So that would be then turned into a non-title fight for her, which is curious to me, but ultimately, hopefully, we don't need her.
Well, now I wonder, so Jessica I hasn't weighed in yet. If she hits 125, shouldn't they logically,
Then things get interesting.
right, give her the opportunity? Again, heaven forbid that something should happen.
Yeah.
But that would make sense.
And Jessica I yet to weigh in.
Yeah, so that's definitely one to keep an eye on. If anyone's wondering if there's any other, how much? No, Casey just pun.
Keep an eye on. I see what you did there,
not
Alex.
Intended. Pun never
Pun
intended.
always intended.
Never.
With our own wordsmith here, Alexander Cayley.
Pun never intended. I am not Mark Raimondi. I don't encourage puns. It's a low form of humor.
Oh, taking the
low-
shot at Mark
I'm sorry, it's a
Raimondi.
low form of
Oh
humor.
my goodness.
Take your mic off right now. I want you
I
to
I'm not a
cannot
fan.
believe this
I'm not a fan.
treachery.
I'm not a fan.
As a
of
fellow,
puns or Mark
I
Romani, if
will-
I'm being perfectly honest.
I will not let this
I'm not a
treachery
fan.
stand against my fellow A-side co-host. I feel as though we must throw down right
you almost
now.
You almost said your a-hole co-host. And I was gonna be
Look
like,
at what this man
I'd be
did.
like,
Alexander K. is unleashed.
I love Mark Romani. Mark Romani is.
You can't save face now.
I love him. He's top class. He's top class. But
Mark Romani
the
will
puns,
be hearing about this.
I hope he hears all the puns.
He's mad.
Mark Romani on the MMA
Oh,
Fighting
no.
Slack coming back at Alexander K. Lee, as he should.
Oh no. We love Mark.
Mark
We love
Romani,
Mark.
the king of the puns, and Alexander
He
K. Lee.
is.
Say it is a low form of humor.
He's very good at
I
them.
don't know that I agree with that. Let's move on before Alex digs his grave a little,
feel like-
a little deeper.
I feel like we were talking about something else. How did we get? Oh, Jessica I. Yeah, please.
Yeah, you had a fantastic pun.
Yeah, okay. Well, Jessica I, let's see if she comes at 125. And then I think we have to know that maybe that makes her the official replacement. It just makes sense.
I mean, let me ask you, because we asked both of them yesterday. In your eyes, does this feel like a number one contender fight for you guys? Because in my eyes, I feel like that's a number one contender fight. Those are probably the two women on the best streaks in that division and with the most history in that division. Do you feel as though that's a number one contender fight? Is the winner of that fight, regardless of how it goes or who wins, in your mind, should they get that shot at the winner of Valentina versus Joanna?
You know, we always hesitate to use the word logic when talking about title fights and potential matchups, but logically, yes, that has to be the next two names in line. Even though I think I is ranked 9th, but that's probably based on, like, she would be higher if it wasn't for the struggles she had at strawweight. Like, I understand now ranking
Also,
her
I don't
higher.
know that the flyweight rankings really mean much right now. It feels as though a lot of that is still being resolved. I mean, I don't know that there is enough history in that division for it to matter.
Yeah, I just loaded it up now. I'm just looking at it now. Sijara Eubanks was a top contender. We just heard she's moving back up to 135, so
Yeah.
she's out of it. Nico Montano is in limbo. We hope Nico's doing well, but we don't know what her status is. And then after that, it's like you said, then it's a bit of a cluster. It's such an underdeveloped division that anyone from 6 to 15, or whatever the ranking is, probably closer together than the rankings suggest. So, yeah, the good news for the division today is, like we said, we have the champions. They're going to sort that out, and then, if we're lucky, then this is a number one contenders fight. And for the UFC, their next match to make at 125 is easy. Chikagian I winner versus Shevchenko Jacek winner. Fingers crossed, everything works out, which it will, because I don't believe in jinxes. So, no concerns.
As you have said numerous times.
I feel like the more I say it, the less likely something bad's gonna happen.
All right, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
All right, how are you guys doing?
All right, and if you were just joining us here on this morning weigh-in stream, thank you for joining us. We're about halfway into this sucker. And for the most part, things have been smooth sailing. We have about 6 fighters left to go, and that's not including Renato Moicano, the backup fighter for the main event. What were your takeaways from Max Holloway's weigh-in?
Well, I was just gonna. Thanks. I was just gonna say that for anyone, like I said, who's just tuning in, please make sure when you get the chance to go back and watch both Max's weigh-in and Joanna's weigh-in, because they were again. It's so weird to say, they were statement weigh-ins. Holloway has dealt with so much skepticism, and some of it of his own doing, because him and his camp, understandably, don't want to elaborate on whatever the health issues were that knocked him out of the last meeting with Ortega, right? So it's left to a lot of speculation from fans and I guess media as well. So for him to just
I would say
be able to-
warranted speculation.
fair, yeah, absolutely.
Because that was very scary what happened to him. And
Yeah.
the fact that we don't have an answer
No.
yet, I think that's worrisome. But as you said, he has looked very good this week.
Yeah, and it's funny, Ortega all week, I think he was asked on a couple of occasions, are you confident that he's going to make it? And he would, the company line would be like, I'm sure Max is going to make it, and we're going to have a great fight on Saturday by the pay-per-view. He would
He
not
didn't say that.
Neither
He did not
time
say
would he
that.
say that. He found a diplomatic way to kind of say, I think one time it was just, nope, I'm not sure. And then the other time it was, I just don't want to get my hopes up again.
Yeah.
He wasn't explicitly saying, I don't think he's going to make it, but definitely did not sound confident. So.
And one of the interesting things in regards to that matchup to me, I mean, when we were at this press conference on Wednesday, I asked Brian Ortega and Max Holloway, does this feel like one that you guys, regardless of what happens on Saturday, you guys will be meeting again? And they both said yes, and they both, it doesn't even need to be at featherweight, because who knows how much longer Max Holloway is going to fight in this featherweight division. Dana White is already talking about how he wants him to move up after this fight. But it feels as though these really are the two best fighters in the world, both hitting their primes at the exact same moment. I think this is one we could see more than once.
And I know people would love it if there was some like more animosity between them, like, oh, yeah, we talk about trilogies in the UFC. Chuck Liddell, T. Ortiz, right? One of the greatest. Genuine dislike, which unfortunately became a. Oh, sorry,
that's
was
not
not. Well,
quite a
now it's
trilogy
now
now.
it's trilogy.
Let's go ahead and erase that from our memories.
Yeah, now it's trilogy. I apologize to everyone for bringing that up, that recent event up. But yeah, the great rivalries in the UFC generally built on both competitive fire and also sometimes a little bit of trash talk, right? So I know people probably wish there was more of that between Holloway and Ortega, but they're both such positive guys, and they both, are so much about the honor of the sport that I hope, should it develop into a rivalry, whether it's 2 fights or 3 fights or even more, that people appreciate why they're doing it. It's not about disliking each other. It's just they're 2 guys. I think they're both 27. They're both in their 27 year and really in their prime.
Ortega's 28, but yeah.
Is he 28?
Yeah, and Max
Okay.
just turned 27 this week.
Oh, okay. So Ortega's actually older, but essentially both in their primes,
Yeah.
right? Both in their respective primes, and the thought of that carrying over for another 5 or 6 years, possibly, and them competing again is very, very intriguing.
And you talk about them being respectful. They've been extraordinarily respectful in the lead up to this fight. I'd say the most, the most outrageous trash talk was maybe Brian Ortega calling him delirious, which is that's not much on the scale of trash talk. And it has been refreshing in a way, because that has also been a part of the co-main event as well, where Valentina Shevchenko and Joanna Jędrzejczyk, for as much as Joanna Jędrzejczyk usually would try to get in opponents' heads and play the mental games, she hasn't done it as much for this fight, and it has really led to an interesting dynamic between all 4 of these top fighters, where there is a level of respectfulness that is carried throughout the week. I don't know if that's ultimately. I don't care, because it has been refreshing. It has been refreshing in a way to not have this artificialness and the mudslinging and this and that. And we are picking things back up here at the UFC 231 morning weigh-ins. Jessica Eye ready to make her way to the scale. As we were just talking about, she is taking on Caitlin Chukagian. She is in a flyweight fight that could be a #1 contender fight, and she is excited, waving to the crowd.
Will she make championship weight if she becomes the replacement? Let's see.
$126.
126 for Jessica Eye. So that fight is official. And as we were just saying, she does not make championship weight. She didn't need to. But now neither her nor Caitlin Chukagian made championship weight. So if one of their numbers is called, they would not be fighting for the title. It would be a non-title fight on their end. Hopefully we will not need that, though.
We should mention, at no point did we hear an official word from the UFC that the Chukagian deal was.
Next fight to the scale in the lightweight division, Gilbert Burns.
We'll
Next
mention
on
it
the
again.
scale is Gilbert Burns, who's taking on Olivier Aubin-Mercier in a lightweight bout on the FS1 prelims. And there's a little bit of history between these 2 men. They were supposed to fight earlier in this year, and that fight was taken off because Gilbert Burns was overweight in the middle of the week. It was actually early in the week. And there's a little bit of heat between them because of that.
155 3/4.
155 3/4 for Gilbert Burns. And that fight should be a good one.
He's happy, and Olivier Aubin-Mercier is happy. So, who we're still waiting for.
Yes, we spoke to Olivier Aubin-Mercier yesterday, and he admitted to still having some hesitance, some reticence over accepting this matchup because he did not trust Gilbert Burns to be able to do what he just did.
Yeah, he seems subdued, and let's not forget that also led to him having to take on the very dangerous Alexander Hernandez. So I want to touch upon the eye thing.
Just really quickly, AK,
go
just
ahead.
want to
Go
jump
ahead,
in
yeah.
here. We were about hitting the halfway point of today's morning weigh-ins. If you were just joining us, this has been the thank you for joining us for the UFC 231 morning weigh-in stream. All that we have left here today is Gunnar Nelson, Hakeem Dawadu, Eric Anders, and Olivier Aubin-Mercier, so 4, and then Renato Moicano if he is planning to weigh in as a backup fighter for the main event.
Yeah, we don't know what's going on with the backup situation because, like I said, with the eye thing, Chookagian was also supposed to be the backup for the co-main event, supposedly. It was actually Valentina who had kind of dropped that information at Wednesday's press conference. I don't know if you remember, which is kind of what got us asking Caitlin about it the next day. And then Caitlin also confirmed. She said, yeah, as far as I know, I'm the replacement. I don't know if so now I'm
No, it's official.
Oh, it was? Okay. I guess I had not spoken to anybody about it. But, I mean, it can't be now. That's the strange thing. Sean is shrugging his shoulders.
Yeah. It is what it is.
Max Holloway, as Max Holloway always says, it is what it is. So, I would just tell fans, expect things to go as scheduled.
Yeah. That sounds right to me.
I can tell him.
In the meantime, let's move on.
Very
Let's
surprised
talk a
that
little
neither
bit.
I nor Chookagian, though, made 125.
Let's talk a little bit about this undercard, AK, because again, it's not a lot of big names, but there are a couple very consequential fights, and no one more so than me. That sentence made no sense, but none more so to me than the two women's fights. And we've talked extensively about the Chookagian versus I fight, but let's talk a little bit about Claudia Gadelha versus Nina Ansaroff, because I think this is a opportunity that Nina Ansaroff did not expect to get. She admitted to me yesterday that this was a surprise to her that she even got this fight. She was kind of thinking of sitting out for a while and kind of just taking a break unless she got a top contender. And she gets one of the top contenders in Claudia Gadelha. This is a massive step up for her, but she's also on a 3-fight winning streak. And if she is able to pull off an upset here on Saturday night, that would be a massive, massive win for Nina Ansaroff.
Let me tell you something, Sean. Loosey-goosey Nina has really turned things around. Like this kind of perspective she's taken on her career, where it's just like, oh, whatever happens, happens. I think she did say that she sort of treats every fight. Definitely the fight that got her off her losing streak. She said she would have retired if she had lost that fight, if she had lost 3 straight. And I think she's kind of that's how she approaches every fight now. Almost, it's a cliche, but as if it's her last. But literally, because she's talked about, maybe going off, starting a family, she probably is thinking, if I lose, that'll be a good time to take a break and walk away. So you're right. For her to get what could be a number 1 contenders fight, depending on what shakes out with Jessica Andrade and Rose Namajunas, her status, we wouldn't have expected this from Nina Ansaroff. I don't know, maybe a year ago or 18 months ago. And here she is fighting Claudia, who for the longest time was considered probably the number 2.
Yeah.
The number 2 strawweight in the world.
Absolutely.
And Claudia sounds pretty confident. She used that phrase. There's levels to this.
I think she sounds more than confident. It felt as though she was almost dismissive yesterday when we asked her about Nina and her chances. Because yes, you're right. She used the line, "There's levels to this," and she almost laughed. I don't know that she quite laughed, but it was very much a chuckle to herself of, yeah, Nina will discover the levels to this game on Saturday.
And again, I almost can't blame her for being so confident because, like I said, 18 months ago, if you had matched up Claudia Gadelha and Nina Ansaroff, it would have said Claudia will crush her. And maybe people are saying that now, but at least based on the success that Nina has had, you can understand why they were matched up. So yeah, Nina, 3 straight, looking for 4 straight. This is huge, and what a story it would be if she can pull off what's I think it's fair to call an upset should she win on Saturday and ends up getting a title shot. And up there in the rankings, just like of course her partner Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Amanda in a second, but this is almost a stay busy fight for Claudia. Looking at the other side of this matchup, because I don't know that she has much to gain from this other than a paycheck. She's really just fighting to keep her spot in that division. And of course, she's coming off of that split decision over Carla Esparza, where she was actually injured in that fight, going into that fight. So, I mean, it is what it is with her. I think this is more or less just for her. She wanted to fight one more time in 2018, and she was just going to accept any opponent.
And they made her come to Canada in December.
Which she was not happy about the cold when we spoke to her.
This is such a mild cold. But again, for her, like I said, I don't think she's ever been anywhere in Canada in December. Thankfully, it's Toronto and not like the Maritimes, because she just wouldn't do it. She would have come, dropped, and she would have gone back on that plane and gotten the heck out.
You were the one that asked her about the cold, and she said she had just left her hotel for about 10 minutes and then went immediately back inside, and that was the extent of her Canadian experience.
Yeah, she's not a fan. Not a fan of the. Not. She didn't have the same childlike glee that you had about the kind of the different climate here and the snow. Maybe she liked the snow. Who knows?
I have been a kid in a candy store here this week with the cold. I cannot tell you how cool this change of pace is for me, a big old desert boy, getting to frolic around in the snow. But that is neither here nor there. But yes, you mentioned Amanda Nunes, and when we talked to Nina yesterday, I mean, Nina, obviously the partner of Amanda, I asked her about that fight, and she said that Amanda, while training for really this move up to 145 pounds, has been a different type of person in the lead up to this fight. She's not as having to focus on this weight cut, which is, I mean, she started at featherweight, so bantamweight has never been an easy cut for her. She's not having to focus on that weight cut, and really it seems as though her spirits are very high. She's been here all week as well, supporting Nina, despite the fact that she has the biggest fight of her life in a couple weeks. And you know, Nina, when we asked Nina about, you know, are you guys going to surprise the world over the next couple weeks, especially at the end of December, she had an excellent line, effectively telling us to bet the house on Amanda Nunes to take out Chris Cyborg at the end of this year.
First of all, I want to say we don't encourage gambling here at MMA Fighting. I mean, you know, do you?
I encourage gambling.
Okay,
I am a
well,
degenerate. I think all people should be a degenerate.
I don't discourage it. I'm just saying, and certainly I don't encourage people to gamble based on my predictions. Never, ever,
Yes,
ever
that
do
is.
that.
You should
which
never ever follow
come out
Alexander's
every
predictions.
morning of fights. So please, you know, click on them and read them.
I will
never
let me point
use
out a
them.
little fun fact here.
Oh, Lord.
We have an MMA Fighting picks pool going on inside of the team
I don't
within
like
our
this
own
going.
Slack group. And me and Esther Lynn are crushing the competition in 2018. It is a very healthy lead that both of us have over the rest of us. And Alexander Kaley is very low on the standings here.
Yep, it's a
As
good-
is Casey Layden, who is next to me.
No, I'm turning your mics off. This is bullshit. This is bullshit.
But yes, continue, Alex.
No, Alex is in last place. That is a fact.
Look,
Alex
as-
is in last place? I did not
Look,
know
as
that. That's fun.
Yogi,
That is a fun fact about
as
Canada.
the great Yogi Berra once said, there's nothing more difficult to predict than the future. So,
Well, except that if you're Esther and me, it's a little easier.
well, I'm just saying, Yogi Berra, he's a wise man. Yes.
Don't change
So,
the subject.
well, no. Well, the subject. Look, the subject was Nina Ansaroff having confidence that Amanda Nunes is going to defeat Cyborg. She said, bet the house on it. So it was. She's a little biased, I think, but she's just a little. But she's certainly, you know.
They're confident. It seems as though that side of the camp is very confident.
If anyone would know how Amanda's going to perform, it's Nina for sure, and Amanda's coaches. So, and that's definitely what you like to hear. I wouldn't expect to hear anything different, but I'm very much anticipating that title fight. I'm expecting it to be a really competitive fight. You know, I think some people are a little worried because Holm was supposed to be a super competitive fight, and a lot of people, even though the scorecards ended up being close, I know a lot of people just thought Cyborg clearly won, and they weren't very happy with how that fight went down. I think they might be worried that the same thing might happen to Amanda, but I think Amanda's a different beast, completely different fighter than Holly Holm, and that's definitely going to be one to watch. I think that could main event another card. I'm surprised it's a co-main
absolutely.
event. I'll just say that.
And given the accuracy of your picks, I think both Nina and Amanda would very much like you to pick Chris Cyborg in that fight.
You know, predictions are really about saying, you know, just trying to paint a picture, I think, for the fans. It doesn't matter. Be honest.
Happy little tree. Here's a happy little tree.
That's what I do. I paint a happy little tree for the fans. And I try to, you know, just much like Bob Ross, I try to teach them to also make their own predictions. Again, if I'm wrong, you know, at least I'm presenting some facts. I think I'm presenting some facts.
If you're wrong.
When you're wrong.
That Beijing card, I mean, who could know how any of those fights were going to go? Are you serious? Like, did anyone watch that?
What about the rest of 2018? Never mind. We don't need to continue to harp on how terrible your picks are. I'm just kidding.
You're kidding about stopping. You're like, we're going to keep going. That's what you're kidding about.
No. It's all in good fun. I have to defend my boy, Mark Raimondi, and in his puns.
The A sign.
And if you are just joining us here today, this is the UFC 231 morning weigh-in stream. We have 6 fighters left. Actually, I'm sorry, I don't think we have 6 fighters left. We have 4 fighters left.
Now, yeah.
And then that is not including Hanada Moicano. And one of those fighters that is left is Gunnar Nelson. And let's talk a little bit about Gunnar Nelson, because this man has had a difficult, not even year, I would say 18-month stretch for him, really. The last time he fought was the middle of last year, and that was against Santiago Ponzinibbio, which was a very controversial fight. Obviously, there were a lot of eye pokes and fouls in that fight that kind of marred result. And then since then, Gunnar Nelson has just been unable to compete. I mean, he had a long layoff. He suffered a knee injury. There were other circumstances as well that kept him out of the cage. When we spoke to him this week, yesterday, it really felt as though he was just happy to be here, happy to be back in this.
Yeah, Gunnar came to the UFC with a lot of good hooks, as far he's a karate guy, but also like an expert grappler. There's the Conor McGregor Association, which is always great. He has that kind of stoic, Icelandic personality, which is distinct in its own way. If you're not going to be a great trash talker, going the other way is also quite memorable. So people know him like for that. He's almost like a welterweight Musashi before Musashi became like sassy Musashi, and so it's a little bit of a shame that Gunnar hasn't been able to compete and. This is the second long layoff he's had in the UFC. He's only fought 3 times since 2015, which is a shame because, again, I think fans really enjoy watching him fight. He has a distinct style, which, frankly, a lot of guys in the UFC don't have these days. It has become somewhat of a homogenized product, but when you watch Gunnar Nelson, he's memorable. You watch a Gunnar Nelson fight. So he does want to bounce back from that rough loss to Santiago where he was gouged pretty badly in the eyes. I'm not saying that's what necessarily led directly to the outcome.
Certainly didn't help his case.
It could not have helped. But Cowboy is a heck of an opponent to fight.
That is
a long layoff.
That is something I want to say because that Cowboy is one hell of a fighter to come back to from an injury, from a long layoff, from trying to shake off that ring rust. Cowboy is not the type of opponent who will give you that space to really collect yourself in there and remind yourself of how to function inside that octagon. He's going to be in Gunnar Nelson's face from the get-go. That is a tough fight to take after an 18-month layoff.
Yeah, and he clearly knows. I mean, obviously Cowboy and his team have to know that. And when you're dealing with a karate guy, probably you want to think a little bit about how you approached it. We've seen Machida make people look like fools, and Nelson himself to some degree. So they might be a little cautious, but I'd fully expect Cowboy to just push the pace early, really see, like I said, how prepared Gunnar Nelson could be after what's a 500-plus day layoff. And I don't know. It should be a competitive fight. I think it's going to go the distance, but I could see Oliveira catching him early, and it's going to be a rough night for Gunnar.
Yeah, it is an important fight for both men because when you look at Gunnar Nelson, he is 30 years old, so he obviously still has a lot left to go in his career, so a lot of time left to do what he needs to do. But I don't know that his UFC run has really gone the way that a lot of people expected it. It's struggled over the past couple of years to put together a really nice run, and now it's a long stretch of inactivity. I think this is a big one for him this weekend. And it appears as though things are picking back up here at the UFC 231 morning weigh-ins. I see Hakeem Dawodu, who is about to tip the scales. He's taking on Kyle Bochniak.
Next up to the scale in the featherweight division, Hakeem Dawodu.
Hakeem Dawodu, Canada's own.
Oh, he's got a good mean mug going.
He has a good mean mug going. He's intense. He is ready to do this.
He is known as Mean Hakeem Dawodu, so staying on brand.
$145
145 3/4 for Hakeem Dawodu, who keeps the mean mug on, man. He flexes. And that fight is official. He is taking on Kyle Bochniak on the pay-per-view card. Very big opportunity for him here to make an impression on a card that, again, as we have mentioned, is really a fight fans card. So there is a lot of fight fans that are going to be watching this or interested in the 2 top fights, and they're going to get exposed to Hakeem Dawodu. He has an opportunity here to make an impression.
Yeah, we said earlier, compelling story, exciting fight style. He's Canadian, so he's definitely going to have support up north, and he's still very early in his career. I think this will be his 9th or 10th pro fight. So fans definitely need to keep an eye on him because you could be seeing the beginning of a really, really strong MMA career here, UFC career. He's had some great experience. Competed for, you mentioned, World Series of Fighting, now the UFC. So for a guy who hasn't had a lot of fights, he's actually had some pretty. You look through some guys' records, and you'll see the guys they knocked out in 2 seconds, like 0-1 guy or 0-3. If you look at his recent 5 or 6 fights, they've all been against at least guys with positive records. Some of them with very, very strong pro records. So Hakeem Dawodu, one to watch, and he's on the main card. the only main card fighter left is the one guy we were just discussing, I think, Gunnar Nelson.
Yes, Gunnar Nelson, who has never really struggled to make weight in this division. And he was actually, several fighters to us, unprompted yesterday during media day, brought up the idea of the 165-pound division and how much they really wanted. Cowboy Oliveira was one, but Gunnar Nelson was another, and he had a very passionate defense of it because he is one of those guys, man, where he is fighting men much larger than him in this 170-pound division. He hasn't cut a lot of weight. He at 165 would really be a nice happy medium for him. He can't make it down to 155, and that gap is just so big. I feel like he is one of those guys that would really benefit from that 165-pound class.
Yeah, he had a great line about it. He said he's so sick of the weigh-in process where two guys go in and then they have to cut whatever X amount of weight, and then by the time they get in the cage, it's actually two guys who weigh 190 pounds and they're just extra tired, you know? And
he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. He's true. It's becoming senseless. Well, it probably became senseless a long time ago. And you know, no matter how much people speak up about it, it just doesn't seem to change. And same with the whole case for the 165 division. A lot of fighters, Kevin Lee's mentioned it many times, and yet there doesn't seem to be any movement on that front. We don't know why. You know, I know fans are sometimes worried. Oh, I don't want more weight divisions because it'll mean more titles to keep track of. And I think based on the last few years, we've seen titles have been handled pretty haphazardly already.
Pretty flippantly.
I don't think adding more like weight classes and more titles is a bad thing at all.
Well, we will see. I mean, there are still reports coming out about flyweight's impending demise, and that has sort of been the line that I've been told several times, is that, you know, we just can't add another division just because there is already too many fighters that we can't get enough fights for them. That's why it's part of the reason why there's so many damn cards. But if that flyweight division goes away, maybe there's an opportunity for 165. We will see. I know Dana White really doesn't like the idea. 170 is a bit of a legacy division. There's a lot of history there with Matt Hughes and Carlos Newton and George St. Pierre and this sort of and we are continuing to go, but and just sort of the history there at 170. So we'll see. We'll see.
Speaking of 170.
Speaking of, here is the man we were just talking about, Gunnar Nelson, up to the scale next.
Next up in the welterweight division, Gunnar Nelson.
Gunnar. Gunnar Nelson in tremendous shape.
$170.25.
170.25 for Gunnar Nelson. He makes weight for his fight against Alex Cowboy Oliveira here on this pay-per-view card. And again, as we said, a very big fight for him. He is coming off of a very long layoff, an injury layoff as well. He is still, nonetheless, the number 14 ranked fighter in that very deep 170-pound class. This is a very important fight for both men.
Sean, I want to pick up on something you were just talking about before you came up about welterweight, you know, being a legacy division and then not wanting to split it up into 165, 175. I got a take for you.
Hit me. Oh, this seems like a pipe
Let me get ready to
tweet
tweet this. Tradition, particularly in sports, tradition in sports leagues, tradition is the worst reason to keep anything. If you're just basing it just on tradition, it's pointless. There has to be more justification than, well, this is the way it's been for so and so many years, so we have to keep it that way. I'm not saying there aren't other reasons to keep it with just the one division, but please, if Dana White or anyone is trotting out, oh, this is the way it's been, we'll just keep it, like, no, stop it. Stop it.
I don't know that that's even really a hot take, because I agree with you. I think tradition in general, especially in a sport this young, where really this sport is still in its infancy, so what is tradition really? If 20 years tradition, because that's not much of a tradition, right? So we'll see. I mean, we will see. It does feel as though we will have an answer about the flyweights within the next month, because I mean that fight between Henry Cejudo and TJ Dillashaw is in January, and I think a lot of answers will come from that.
It's not looking great because we just had news this morning that Ben Gwynn,
the latest flyweight casualty,
has been cut after his loss. So that's unfortunate. A really exciting fighter. And Wilson Reyes was not his best performance. He got out wrestled, he got grounded, he got neutralized. So
he feels like a one championship guy. He feels like a very easy pickup for them, and you know, a possible challenger for Demetrius Johnson once they get that division go up and running. Or I guess not that division, but his sort of reign over that organization going.
I'm not gonna lie, I spoke to Ben, you know, and he lives in Australia, so it's an easier trip for him to go to some of these Asian countries. He's of Vietnamese descent. He's always wanted to fight in Asia. He's never had the chance to. So I don't want to say he had one foot out the door because I don't want to disrespect whatever happened, you know, his performance. I don't want to say it affected his performance. But when I spoke to him, he didn't sound broken up about the possibility of possibly fighting for one. He very openly talked about it. He's involved in esports, which is very huge in Asia. He's traveled to Asia. He has sponsors in Asia. I mean, the writing's on the wall. I think we'll see. I don't have any inside information in that regard, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Ben pop up in that promotion in 2019.
I would actually be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
And he was one of those guys where, you know, you had spoken to him and he had basically said the UFC has not communicated anything to me in regards to the future of the flyweights. So business as usual.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's easy to break that news to a whole division of people, but boy, you've got to communicate something to them or their management, just something so they can plan like the next 6 months of their lives, you know? It's just inconsiderate. It's inconsiderate. It's a little cruel almost for some of these fighters who primarily compete at 125 and really can't reasonably make the jump up to 135. You know, so you got to let them know. And I think a lot of us would want to see the flyweight division stick around. But if it doesn't, please, you know, UFC sooner rather than later, let some of these guys know.
Let me put you on the spot. If you had to choose between one, would you rather have the 125 or 165?
That's a good question. I'll say 165. I'll say it.
I agree
Yeah,
with you.
I'll admit it, I'll say it because it just opens the door for so many potentially cool matchups. And I like flyweight. I think it's definitely has always been underrated as far as how competitive it is, and I think it's had a lot of great fights. I think if people look back on the top 10 fights of the flyweight division, it matches up with almost. I think it matches up with a lot of the other divisions as well. But 165, yeah, when you think about the kind of things that can happen and how easy it'd be to facilitate certain pairings, I think you got to go for it.
Yeah.
But I'm just encouraged for more weight classes in general.
I agree with you, and let's circle back around to the events happening here. This has been the UFC 231 morning weigh-in stream. There are only two fighters left on the card to weigh in, Olivier Aubin-Mercier and Eric Anders, both fighting on the FS1 prelims. Other than that, it has been an easy day. No one has missed weight. There hasn't even been need of a towel or the hoop of shame, as some would call it. And of course, we're also waiting for Renato Moicano, who may weigh in as well. We are unsure about that. But other than that, it's been an easy day here, Alex.
Yeah, easy day, you know, which is always good news for the fans, always good news for the fighters, especially so early on, getting that tension out of the way. The biggest concern, Max Holloway. People love drama, but in this case, I would like to think people love Max making weight and us getting a dramatic fight on Saturday, as opposed to, you know, us having to worry about the scale and write about the scale and things like that. So.
Now, this is the first time the UFC has taken a pay-per-view back to Toronto in about 2 years. And if you remember back to what that pay-per-view was, if I'm not mistaken, it was UFC 206. It was indeed UFC 206.
Max
Max
Holloway
Holloway versus Anthony Pettis, which ended up being one of the most exciting pay-per-views of that year.
Yeah, it was an outstanding card. If I recall correctly, I remember there was a great knockout. I'm being vague. You know, there was a great knockout at some point in the card.
Look, I got you. I already know. Donald Cerrone head kicked the hell out of Matt Brown, and then Cub Swanson and Doo Ho and Choi just
fight of the year.
Lost pieces of themselves in the octagon with just an outrageously sensational fight of the year, more or less. I don't know. It's going to be hard for this card to top that the last time they've come here, but I'm sure they're going to try.
That Choi Swanson fight was one where you had to wonder if either guy was the same after. You know, we've seen fights like that before. The first Shogun Henderson fight, probably, and I always say Liddell, and when Liddell and Vanderlei finally threw down, I feel like it just took their souls out of them. Bless them both. And I wonder if Choi and Swanson, you know, Choi's a young guy, but I do wonder if Choi and Swanson just, like you said, left pieces of themselves, pieces that frankly can never be retrieved. So.
Also on that card, Lando Venata getting a head kick knockout,
that was the other one I was
spinning
thinking
wheel
of.
kick knockout of John Makdessi.
Yeah.
My goodness.
It was one of those nights where it was palpable. You know, the violence was palpable, which is scary for a pacifist like myself. It's
Well, you're in the wrong sport if you're a
Listen,
pacifist, my friend. I don't know
I-
that this is a pacifist sport.
I don't believe in solving problems through violence. I think it's silly. If I'm being honest with you.
I think violence is a very effective way to solve problems, to be honest, but it's neither here nor there. Alex a little flustered here.
No, well,
Pacifist
we've got
Canadian.
our one-man peanut gallery over here, Casey, the brilliant Casey.
And if you are just joining us on this morning weigh-in stream, all 4 championship fighters make championship weight relatively easy. Joanna Jacek and Valentina Shevchenko both coming in at 123.5 and 123.75. Very carefree weigh-in for them. It seemed as though it was easy. Joanna Jacek wanting to weigh in with sweatpants on, commission official making her empty her pockets in case there were weights in there. It was a breeze for her, and really, I mean, we said this earlier, but this has been the easiest fight week I can remember seeing from Joanna. I've covered a lot of her fights in person, and generally you see it wear on her throughout the week, where maybe at the beginning of the week she is very, to use your word, chipper and friendly and happy, and by the end of the week she's very much sucked in, and you can tell it's draining her, but I did not get any sense of that this week.
She doesn't necessarily make decisions based on the fans. She loves the fans, but she's certainly very independent in how she makes her career decisions. I do wonder how much demand there is to see her go back to 115. I think a lot of people felt like that's run its course, and that 125 is perfect for her. I don't know who's left for her to fight at 115 other than her probably wanting to get that Rose Namajunas matchup.
Well, I would cut in there because I think there is opportunity there for her in that division where the next contender is Jessica Andrade. Joanna has a win, a very decisive win over Jessica Andrade. If Jessica Andrade defeats Rose Namajunas, and I think that she definitely has a chance, that is a difficult style matchup for Rose Namajunas. There is immediate opportunity there in that division for Joanna to go back down and to get that title back.
Yeah, I think I meant more to say again, how much demand is there for people to see that fight again? It was a fine fight. The first Andrade Jacek fight was fine. It was fine. It was a great performance by Joanna. Frustrating performance for Andrade, I'm sure. How much do fans want to see that fight again? And again, I know that doesn't matter to Joanna. It's not going to how she bases her decisions, but I have to think that there's a lot more support to see her take on these fresh matchups at 125.
That being said, if she does have an unsuccessful night on Saturday, I think she would rather return back to a title fight opportunity than toil away at 125 trying to reclaim that contendership status.
Yeah, and I think you're right. They probably would just grant her an immediate, even coming off a loss, probably would, even just based maybe off the Tisha Torres win and her previous accomplishments, maybe they would immediately give her the winner of Andrade Namajunas if that matchup does unfold. Again, I'm not in favor of that.
I agree with you. Ultimately, I don't want to see her back at 115. It was getting difficult to see her try to make that weight. It was obvious that it was very difficult for her. But
I understand wanting to, she talks a lot about following your dreams, and that's what's most important to her. I totally understand that sentiment, but at some point, I like to think she realized maybe she has such a great performance on Saturday, and it opens her eyes, and she says, "Oh, I have to stay at 125." And 125 it feels great because all she said is how great it is to be at 125 so far with the weight cut and the training. So it's confusing for us. We're on the outside. We don't know so much of what goes through her mind. So, maybe we're misreading that, but it really looks like her body is telling her to stay at 125.
I muted.
I didn't mute it, so that's great.
Nothing going on here.
Live television.
Listen, live grooming.
And we have 2 fighters here left at the UFC weigh-ins. Olivier Aubin Mercier. Actually, I believe we just have 1. Oh no, yes, 2. Olivier Aubin Mercier and Eric Anders. Those are the 2 we are waiting upon. Also Renato Moicano, who may weigh in as well. And actually, I'm going to go check in about that, so I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll chatter a little bit while
Hello, hello, and we are back at the UFC 231 morning weigh-in stream. Thank you for keeping it locked with us here on MMA Fighting. My name is Sean Al-Shadi, and I'm joined, of course, by Alexander Catley, a resident Canadian here on the team.
Hi, everybody.
And I have, in fact, confirmed that Renato Moicano will weigh in. So we're waiting on him, along with Olivier Aubin-Mercier, fellow Canadian.
Beautiful
And,
pronunciation.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And Eric Anders.
Beautiful pronunciation.
Well, that one's a little easier for me.
Now, Eric, I'll say, I'm a little surprised he's coming out so late. I don't expect him to have issues making. I mentioned before, maybe there be some problems with his body because he's coming down from that brief jump up to 205. But he's married to his wife is like a fitness and nutritionist person. She helps him with a lot of his diet, so I don't think he's a big guy. He's a big guy. It's definitely not an easy cut.
Yeah, I'm not assuming anything.
No,
any of the
no,
worst for anybody.
don't you worry. He probably just slept in. He's one of
yeah,
those guys,
I mean,
yeah.
The 205 fight, it wasn't as though he gained weight for it. He more or less just took it just to take it. But in the meantime, if you are just joining us, thank you once again. Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, they both make weight for their featherweight title fight. That main event is official as well. Valentina Shevchenko versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Both of those women make weight at 123 pounds. A little bit extra for both. That fight is official as well. Both of our championship fights are a go, and I think that is a deep sigh of relief for MMA fans across the world because this is a tremendous card here on Saturday, and I am really excited about it.
I should say, and this is a shout out. This is a positive shout out to our boy Mark Ramondi.
You can't make up the ground that you've already lost.
I'll definitely make it up.
You can't make up the ground you've already lost.
By talking about our mutual love for the beam scale. Look, the beam scale brings
I
us
see you
together.
pandering. I see you pandering.
I love the beam scale. And the beam scale might be why we've had some curious, why Shevchenko and Joanna came in so low. Who knows? We don't know how accurate it is. I'm sure they made the weight, but it was kind of peculiar.
Are you doubting the beam scale?
No. Oh, I mean, no, yes, actively, yeah. That's what's great. That's what's great about the beam scale. Yeah, you can doubt it, and it leads to more fights being made with no worries about being off by 1 ounce or whatever. And I'm just saying. So Mark Ramondi, #beam scale. It's the best. That is something he and I can agree on.
I don't know if that was enough to make up the ground you've already lost with him, but we'll see.
We weren't really getting along that great in the first place.
Oh my goodness. So Alex, I want to ask you, what's one fight that maybe nobody's looking at? What's one fight that you have your eye on this undercard that we haven't talked about that really feels as though it could be very interesting or consequential in some fashion that maybe just is completely flying under the radar?
Well, I mentioned earlier, I'm definitely a fan of Brad Katona from Winnipeg, and also Matthew Lopez. Like I said, I know his results have not been great. He's 2-3 in the UFC, but he's a competitive guy. He's maybe sometimes a little too aggressive for his own good, which is why he's taken some of the losses he has. But that could be a really good fight. Bantamweight, I almost feel like, with the drama in flyweight and featherweight being such a strong division, and we're talking featherweight a lot today. Bantamweight, I feel like gets forgotten almost as how deep and exciting a division it is. And Katona and Lopez are good fighters. This is a big fight for Katona because he won the Ultimate Fighter as a featherweight, so this is really his proper UFC debut, I would say. He's coming to a very natural weight class of 135. He looks tiny when he's competing in the Ultimate Fighter. Clearly,
Katona SBG product.
That's right. He's. I told him the other day, this is the last time I was going to ask him about the accent, but I know anyone who's heard him speak, he's got a distinct sort of speaking manner, which comes from being from Winnipeg, and as a young man, he had to go through speech therapy, and it's certainly possible spending time over in Ireland. Anyone who I'm sure has lived abroad will tell you that you pick up little parts of the phrases that. So yeah, he has a unique accent, which is cool when he's in interviews, and definitely looks like a really talented fighter, unbeaten so far in his young career. And I would tell people it's on the Fight Pass prelims. Definitely tune in and keep an eye on that one.
Now, obviously this card here this weekend is a very good one. We said that several times, but I want to look ahead a couple weeks from now because UFC 232 is closing in fast, and the year-end events are always usually one of the hallmarks of the calendar, right? They're usually something the UFC tries to stack and make a very exciting card for, but that is one hell of a top billing between John Jones and Alexander Gustafsson and Chris Cyborg and Amanda Nunes. Also, you got Carlos Condit on that card. against Michael Chiesa. There is some interesting matchups up and down on that card, but just in general, I wanted to ask you about John Jones because we spoke to Jimmy Manuwa this week, yesterday in fact, training partner of Alexander Gustafsson. And Jimmy Manuwa more or less was, how should I phrase this? I asked him about John Jones being so outwardly dismissive of a lot of the fighters in this division and Alexander in general. And Jimmy Manuwa indicated to us that Alex is technically the best fighter in terms of technique in the division, but also that there is a renewed fire under him because this is one fight that he has wanted for a long time. I think it's been 5 years since those guys first fought in that legendary fight at UFC 165. What was your impression from talking to Jimmy about the state of Alexander Gustafsson and how this is all going to play out, I guess, in a couple weeks?
You know, like you said, they trained together, so it was no surprise he'd have such a high estimation of his partner. Not that he needs to artificially boost up, Gustafsson's resume. Everyone knows how good this guy is. It's unfortunate he hasn't competed more. We know he's been hindered by injuries, and I mean, one could also argue that he's been a little bit savvy about, maybe the fights he's taken. We know he's wanted the John Jones rematch ever since their first fight. So, I would say, maybe this is my opinion, that Gus, like I said, has always been angling towards getting that fight back. And so it's great that he's finally got it. It's great that he appears to be healthy, as Jimmy's saying. It's great that he is in top form, because he'll have to be. If he hopes to challenge John the same way he did the first time, I'm sure they're both improved. So he'll have to be 10 times better than he was in that first fight, because I know we don't know what John Jones is up to. We don't, but he's controversy aside, as far as in-cage results go, is one of the most accomplished guys, in the history of the sport. And I mean, that rematch can be great. I love that. I love everything that Manuwa said, bias or no, and yeah, I believe it. I believe that this will surpass. This could surpass that first meeting.
What do you think it would take for John Jones to reclaim part of the legacy that I feel like he has lost just in the eyes of MMA fans in terms of the GOAT conversation and just, I guess, his overall greatness? Because I feel like it has been tainted to some degree. You write an article about him, you know what the comments are going to be generally. It's going to devolve into some level of an argument but between the two sides, the two camps when it comes to John Jones. You tweet about him, same thing. How many, do you think the Gustafsson fight is enough, or is that just the beginning, really, when it comes to that?
I'll be honest with you, fair or not, there's probably not a lot of people who haven't already made up their mind about John Jones, regardless of what he does the rest of his career. There's some people who are in the, either they don't care about PD's camp, or they don't believe that he was on PD's the whole time, or they don't believe that they believe, his recent explanation that, it was such a small amount, they wouldn't have an effect on my performance, There's people in that camp, John Jones fans or fans who don't care about drug testing. And then there's other fans who are almost too far the other way, where it's like, I don't think this guy's a great fighter at all. He wouldn't have won anything if it wasn't for performance, the 2 drug tests he failed. And I think that's fair. I think clearly John Jones is a super talented guy. It is a shame that he has the 2 failed drug tests. And so, no, I don't know from now on really how much he can shift his legacy either way. I think there are just 2 camps now.
You think that he's unable to convince the people that have made up
I think people who are fans of his will walk through hell with gasoline boots on for him. And I think
I like that.
Yeah, and I think fans who are against him, any wins he has, it's just forever tainted. Failing 2 drug tests, that's tough. A reasonable explanation or not, that is tough. And I completely understand why people might say everything he's done is has to be scrutinized, and everything he's done since has to be scrutinized. And I just will not accept him as the greatest fighter of all time. Will not accept it. And that's not. Again, I'm not saying that's me. I'm saying I understand where that comes from.
See, I don't know if I agree with you, though, because I think I agree with you in the sense that there are definitely 2 defined camps. I do think time heals all wounds, especially in this sport. People move on very quickly. If John Jones blows the doors off of Alexander Gustafsson, I think that would start a process where if he wins a couple more fights, I don't know if we're going to hear that after a certain point. I feel like this is the easiest sport to be able to get forgiveness when it comes to people and their mindsets in regards to, just because of the unpredictability and also just the breakneck speed at which this sport moves. There's events every week. I mean, if I asked you about the TUF finale last week, it would probably be difficult to answer certain questions about what happened on the TUF finale. Things are forgotten very quickly. John Jones may be a different case, but I think there is definitely a road for him to be able to get back in that conversation.
You raise a good point. I'll never forget the reaction immediately after the head kick of Cormier. I mean, I know it's been overturned now, but it happened. The second fight with Cormier, the head kick win, he was so humble after. He said all the right things after, like, oh, I respect Daniel and all those things like that. And I'm a mature man. I'm a mature man.
Casey is mean mugging you right now.
Me? Well, I'm just saying. I remember the way the crowd. You're right. They embraced him again. It was such an exciting knockout, and he'd said all the right things after, and the crowd was like, "Yes, John, I'm ready to love John again. I'm back."
That's what the John people want.
I'm just saying that's the way it was. Definitely when it happened, because I had.
That was a fake John. That wasn't the real John.
Casey's
So you want the
saying,
fake John?
Casey coming in.
Oh, I'm saying. Well, I think
The crowd was
Casey's
embracing the fake John.
Yeah, Casey's saying they're embracing the fake John.
The crowd has cheered him more once he became evil John. Once he became, I made him cry. That's when he got the cheers. He didn't get the cheers when he was Mr. Humble John Jones.
Ooh, Casey's being a case for heel John Jones. He's saying heel John Jones is the one that really became famous.
He's right, though.
There's truth to that, yeah. But now I don't
John
know
used
if
to be booed.
Yeah.
John, they're not booed, but he was kind of like, I want to see the real John.
Yeah.
That was the storyline forever. And then we got the real John Jones, and the real John Jones got a lot of trouble, but he got more cheers. He's more popular than ever.
But now, after the second failed drug test, I don't know how strong the heel. Like I said, it plays to his base already. His base loves it. His base, they don't.
His base.
His base. He has a base. We know he has a base.
I just like that term being used in MMA.
Oh, absolutely, John Jones has a base, and they were with him when the second failed drug test happened. They'll be with him until, again, no matter what he does. But like you said, I do think if there's any chance of him winning an over, which I think is difficult anyway, I don't know if it's by sticking with the heel John Jones shtick. Not after the second test. After the second test, that has people going like, oh, I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like this guy.
I disagree with you on that aspect.
Really?
I think I agree with Casey in the fact that I think people just want him to be himself, and I think that's himself.
The Jed Meshew crowd.
He is the guy he is. He's gonna party. He's gonna do whatever he wants, and he's one of the most talented fighters we've ever seen. And I think that's just what people want from him at this point. Anything else would be artificial, because that's already what we know about John.
So you think that that he's on the path to getting back his legacy just by staying the course, winning his fights, of course, winning his fights in spectacular fashion.
I think I don't know if he is on that path, but there's a roadmap there for him.
Where he doesn't have to make like a dramatic change necessarily to his personality.
Yes, very much so.
Right.
And now we are here back at this morning weigh-ins. UFC 231, there are two fighters left to weigh in, not including Renato Moicano, the backup fighter.
Olivier Aubin-Mercier.
And Olivier Aubin-Mercier up now. Lightweight fighter taking on Gilbert Burns on the FS1 prelims.
$155 3/4.
155 3/4 for OAM. The Canadian gangster. Look at that mustache. That is a mustache, Alex.
That weighs at least half a pound.
A mustache.
Oh, we got a
Casey
mustache
said
challenge over here.
It's a
I will
mustache.
say, Casey's mustache is a little more fleshed out.
Pound for pound, best in MMA. Best in the.
Let's not get too crazy.
Ooh. Go ahead.
I don't have anybody immediately.
Mirsad Bektic.
That's a good one.
Unfortunately not here. His is phenomenal.
But this is a big moment for OAM. I mean, let's talk a little bit about him because he just weighed in. Obviously, that fight is now official. It took him a long time to be able to work his way up this lightweight division. It is so deep. It is such a talent-rich division, just like welterweight, where you got to win 4, 5, 6, 7 sometimes in a row before you really start to get noticed and get opportunities. Unless you're talking a big game or you have the kind of personality and charisma to shine above the rest. But he finally got that opportunity, right? He was finally in that conversation, and then he loses to Alexander Hernandez. And speaking to him yesterday, he kind of just admitted, he beat me everywhere. Like he was just much better fighter than me on that day. And so now that streak of he had won 7 of 8, 4 in a row, that's gone. Now he basically has to start rebuilding from the bottom up. It is a difficult plight of the lightweight, but do you think this Gilbert-Burns matchup, do you feel like this is the one that can sort of get him back on track?
I think it's favorable for him just because it's the matchup he wanted before anyway. I think to a lot of people, Gilbert Burns probably more well-known than Alexander Hernandez. Alexander Hernandez still flying a little bit under the weather despite a huge win over Dariush and then the win over Aubin Mercier. So it's kind of like fortuitous. I know both Aubin Mercier and Burns are coming off losses, but we were the last person coming in.
And here we go.
Eric Anders.
Here we go, Eric Anders up next, and it appears as though the towel will be necessary. Eric Anders taking on Elias Theodoro in a middleweight contest. He's going to try it without the towel once.
186.
186 for Eric Anders. No towel needed. He does not look the best.
I was going to say, he looks like, I want to get out of here and eat something now.
Yeah, he did not look like
He's in a hurry. He's heading right to that.
he is enjoying himself this morning, but he makes weight.
Yeah,
Makes
congratulations,
186. I don't know that he had another pound to lose there. And you were you spoke several times about that move to 205 just very briefly. It's not like he gained weight for it, but he fought at 205 in his last fight. You have to wonder maybe that affected him in some sense.
It can't be good for your physiology to keep making dramatic jumps like that. That's a 20-pound jump.
But he makes it.
He makes it.
So we continue our streak here at the UFC 231 morning weigh-ins. That is everybody on the card. Everyone on the card has made weight. We still have one fighter left, though. Renato Moicano, the backup fighter for this main event. He will need to hit 145. And then we should be good to go. This has been smooth sailing here. That is the second instance.
One more fighter weighing in.
That is the second instance with Eric Anders and Cowboy Oliveira, both of them potentially needing the towel. The towel was brought out, ends up not being needed.
You know who we have to thank for that? The old beam scale.
The old beam scale.
I think it's close enough. I think 156. He's just like, I'm not gonna move that extra little.
It was rounded up.
No, yeah, why?
Or down, I guess.
Or down, yeah. Why? What's the point?
And so we have about 10 minutes here left for Renato Moicano. And we are using the full 2 hours. It is rare we go the full 2, but we are doing it today.
And I'm so happy that I get to spend these 2 hours with my favorite people in the world. Sean, Casey, Esther, all these other people around us.
I see. You burned the bridge with Mark, and so now you're trying to get in deep with me.
Mark and I
I
are
understand, and I appreciate it.
Look.
I am willing to accept it.
So we're waiting for someone who's not fighting?
We are waiting for someone who is
Hopefully
not
not.
fighting.
Hopefully
Casey.
not.
This is bottom of the barrel weigh-ins right now.
Ouch.
Casey, I don't know.
We're waiting for people who are not even fighting.
I think people can hear him, but
We're just waiting for men to take their clothes off now.
I think people can hear him, but Casey just said, this is bottom of the barrel weigh-ins, waiting for a fighter who probably isn't going to fight tomorrow.
Hopefully isn't going to fight.
And we're just waiting to see people take their clothes off.
Well, MMA is a weird game, man. MMA is a weird game. But I love it. Wouldn't do anything else.
It's a weigh-in game, man. It's the best.
I wouldn't do anything else.
I love weigh-ins. Come on. Yeah, all my people's on Twitter. Shout outs to weigh-ins.
Fighting's overrated. Weigh-ins?
Oh, fighting is whatever. Fighting is like, I can see a fight anywhere. I can go on the street and see people fighting. I can go in the street and see people weighing in. Yeah.
I don't know what goes on here in Toronto.
Fault that logic. Huh?
Like, this is free. I'm not paying a dime for this. Like, for free, I get to see men really tired and really hungry and really thirsty just take off almost all their clothes off. This is great.
Just
Things getting a little out of hand here on this morning weigh-in stream. We have 9 minutes to go, and we are waiting for Renato Moicano.
We're at our limit. We're definitely at our limit. I do want to say, I hope, we never get like exact information that's ahead of time. I do hope Moicano is being compensated for, getting a show money.
Is.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. It's not a show money thing, but he's getting
Something.
a specific amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. And what was the last time they had a stand-in lined up again officially? It was recent.
I mean, they're just generally doing this.
And I'm glad. I'm so glad. It's just such a logical thing to do.
I've had this conversation with my co-host Mark on the A side, but I'm a little conflicted in some sense because it is good. You do want to have a stand-in just in case disaster strikes, and you still have a fight, and you still have a championship fight. On the other side of it, though, man, having someone make weight just to do it making weight is not a thing to take lightly. It is a very difficult process, and you can only do it so many times before it starts to catch up with you.
Yeah.
And in wasting one in an instance like this, and then, you know, if the fighter doesn't fight, which you most likely won't, he'll have to make weight again, probably sooner rather than later, to actually get in a fight. Making weight repeatedly over the course of X number of months is not a good practice, and it really screws up your body. So, on one sense, it's good. On one sense, though, it is hard to reconcile that fact.
I don't like it at all. Not for the weight cutter reasons, but it forces, just for example, Ortega or Holloway in a very bad position. They train at the highest level for an opponent, and now at the last second, here, fight this other guy. And now all the pressure is put on that guy to fight someone they're not trained for. And at the highest level, like, what are we watching? We're like, what are we doing here?
That's fair as well. You're forcing a fighter to effectively change everything at the last second.
And I don't like the situation with Caitlin and Jessica I. While it's selfish as a fan, yeah, I want to see the main event. Say if Joanna or Valentina fall out, that screws over Jessica I or Chikagian, because that means they lose their fight. So that's not fair.
Yeah, I mean,
So if Joanna twists her ankle backstage, now Jessica I loses her fight because Caitlin goes up, for example. And I don't think that's right.
Well, this sport isn't fair, and I think that's something we all understand very deeply.
I don't know honestly, I don't know if there's really ever a perfect solution to these things.
I don't know that there's an answer.
They kind of lucked into the Moicano thing because he was supposed to fight Bektic. So he's like, hey, I'm in training camp. I'm on pace to make weight for that date anyway. Keep me on if you can. He wanted another fight, but they didn't find one. Keep me on.
No, there was one out there. The GOAT.
He's ready to fight
He was ready.
anytime. The GOAT. We got to shout out to Artem Lobov, who definitely wanted to take the Moicano fight. He would. Oh, I see comments. He would take a fight on like 2 hours notice.
That
if it
promotional
was on.
malpractice. Because think about it. If Moicano and the GOAT were on this card, wouldn't that get incredible drama and traffic for that?
At that point, how many fights can we have on one card, though?
What do you mean that fight? That fight was on the card. It's just card.
I know, but they added.
Did they add another fight?
Yeah, because now it's a 13-fight card.
Who did they add?
That would make it a 14-fight card.
What did they add?
I don't know off the top of my head, but they.
14 fight card.
Yeah.
So with the expectation, one's gonna fall out. Or two. Can't have enough MMA though. It's literally impossible. I've done the science.
Well, you look like a scientist. You look like a man I could trust. There are about 5 minutes here left at the morning weigh-ins, and we are waiting just on Renato Moicano, the backup fighter for the main event. Everyone today made weight. It was a smooth, easy morning here in Toronto. The Canada weather is fantastic. The beam scale is working just as planned. All things turning up positive here in Toronto on this Friday morning.
Nothing gets you up on a Friday morning like just the crisp, cool air of Canada. You know what I'm saying? It just makes you want to just jump out of bed and just be like, I'm ready to see the weigh-ins. Or whatever it is you had planned for Friday morning. That's what I said.
Everyone
That's what I
listening
did.
at home did not see the tremendous Rose on the Titanic motion that Alexander K. Lee just made here.
Tune in to our preview and post shows this weekend to see if you want to see the gesticulations of Alexander K. Lee. Then
We only have 5 minutes left. In these
Yeah.
So I think we have time for a song.
I realized.
Casey putting Alex on the spot.
I'll
Alex,
sing on the preview show.
who has mentioned several times that he will sing on these streams
Yeah.
and has not done so yet.
He said in the preview show, so he's like,
There are 4 minutes left. You can sing
No,
if you
I
would
don't
like
wanna,
to.
No, I don't want to bother anyone. I will say. I will say.
Anybody
I'm
who
not
is
shy
still
about it.
watching at this point will appreciate your singing.
Well, I think they should tune into the preview show later. I'll drop some bars, but. I
Oh,
think-
that's a different thing. If you're gonna drop some bars, I am all in on that.
What do you want? Do you want singing? Do you want rap? Do you want scatting? I can do some scat for you. I mean,
Hit me. Look,
Look,
you're giving me a lot of possibilities. I just want one of them.
No, I'm not going to sing right now. I think people can tell from my speaking voice. I mean, think about how luscious the speaking voice is. How the singing is. It's almost like I don't want to give it away yet. I think that's,
luscious.
So you're promising that you're gonna sing on the preview show?
Oh, sure. Oh yeah.
All right.
That's I mean that's a little more again. I don't think I'll be bothering as many people hopefully. So I don't want to be obnoxious.
Y'all heard him.
Yeah,
him to it.
Gladly.
We are coming down to the wire here. 3 minutes
I
left
know,
here.
we said no drama, but this is a bit peculiar.
I don't know that this is even drama though. Yeah.
This is just a guy. Am I cutting weight for fun or am I cutting weight for money?
It's true. Do you think?
It's cutting away from money.
Well, no.
Yeah.
That's what we're waiting on right now.
Yeah.
Either right now, if he doesn't make weight, then he just cut weight for fun.
3 minutes left to go. We are waiting on Renato Moicano, the backup fighter for this main event.
What is that motivation to do? He's not like, oh, I'm dying. It's just not
Yeah.
to fight. Though.
Casey is really upset by this whole
No, he's
situation. I can
right.
tell.
He's right. You know, no, and one of the things that gets fighters through is that think about that fight. Not just the paycheck. They love fighting. These people love fighting. And the thrill of finally getting to do it is like that's what pushes them through those last few ounces, you know. And he knows already he's probably not fighting
When
tomorrow.
these guys are dying on that scale or in that sauna, the only thing that's going through their mind is like, I'm gonna kill this guy tomorrow for making me do this. But right now, it's just
I'm gonna strangle myself for agreeing to this. This was not a good decision.
for
I mean, he's thinking I'm going to cash his paycheck.
he doesn't get his full. We don't even know how much. Yeah. But
I understand though. It's the opportunity. You never know.
it's a weird.
Especially in 2018, you never know.
And I also like to think that the company keeps in mind he's done them a solid, for future matchmaking.
Has this happened yet where the commission has, say, they weighed in to now the fight's official, but between now and the actual fight, can they change the fight? Has that happened?
What do you mean?
Well, like Holloway and Ortega have made weight, so the fight is gonna happen tomorrow. But I know we've had they changed the fight on the day of the weigh-ins, but has the fight actually changed on fight day?
I don't know if I can remember a specific example,
No,
but
yeah.
if everybody weighs in, they're definitely able to switch it around and get that cleared pretty quickly. And here we go. This is Renato Moicano.
Featherweight division. Renato Moicano.
And it appears as though he may need the towel as well. We shall see though. Beam scale.
Beam scale hashtag.
Renato Moicano, the backup fighter for UFC 231's main event. And it appears the towel will be needed.
Oh, they're not even gonna announce it.
Oh.
$146.
146 for Renato Moicano, the backup fighter
I don't know.
for UFC 231's main event. He needed to make championship weight to be the official backup fighter, so I'm currently unsure, I guess, about the status of this. We will clarify that for you guys, and we will tweet that out. 1 second, there is some deliberation going on.
This is an hour. Wait for a fight. He's not gonna get.
So it appears as though Renato Moicano will be given an hour if he wants it to cut that extra pound and make championship weight. Yep, he will be, in fact, given an hour to make championship weight to be the official backup fighter.
And
very peculiar situation here. Alex, seems very unnecessary, but that is, in fact, what we are faced with. In the meantime, that is it for us. This has been really ending on a high note here, but that has been the UFC 231 morning weigh-in stream. We will definitely update you guys on MMA fighting as well as Twitter in regards to Renato Moicano's situation, whether you will cut that weight or just settle at 146. In the meantime, thank you so much for sticking with us.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sticking around for another hour and just talking until just for Moicano. I'm just waiting for Moicano for the next hour. Just
Yeah.
talking.
Thank you so much for sticking with us. This has been the UFC 231 morning weigh-in stream. My name is Sean Oshadi. This has been Alexander K. Lee. And hey, it's been a fun week here in Toronto, and the fun does not stop here. We will keep it. We will have lots more for you guys this weekend. Keep it locked to MMA Fighting for pre-fight, post-fight, all of the goodies you've come to expect. We will have a preview show for you later today, ceremonial weigh-ins later today as well, and then of course the big fights tomorrow. Both of those championship fights. All 4 of those fighters have made weight. And hey, this is for Sean Lashani, Alexander K. Lee, the MMA Fighting team, Esther Casey, everybody else.
That's just the singing.
And Casey is reminding me that Alex is going to sing for us at some point during this. Thank you guys once again for joining us, and we will talk to you later today.